I'm going to break down the stages, exactly how it happens when a prophet is birthed, when they're being cultivated, nurtured, when they're being processed, and when they are finally matured and they can minister at a full capacity. Okay, so the Lord gave me this lesson early in the morning, and it's mind-blowing. Okay, so again, we're going to start talking about Samuel. When we look at the process of how a prophet comes about, how he's birthed, how he's processed, all of that, the Lord told me that the blueprint is in Samuel. So the very first stage is this: a prophet has to be birthed through heartache, through struggle, through intercession. The Lord told me that any time that a prophet is brought into an area, a territory, a land, a group of people, it's because there is a need there. A prophet is an answer. A prophet is a solution to issues that are going on in a group of people, in a local church. So a prophet needs to be birthed out. They are birthed out. They are needed because there is heartache, because there is a lack of something. Okay, because remember that a prophet is a gift to the body of Christ. So if we read 1 Samuel 1:12-17, this is where we see that Eli misunderstood what was going on with Hannah. Okay, when Hannah was wanting a prophet to be birthed out, when she wanted to give birth to the prophetic, she was misunderstood. And if we look at the story, because this is all symbolic, okay? If we look at it, Eli, who would later be Samuel's leader, Samuel's mentor, Samuel's, overseer, he misunderstood the birthing. And this is what we see a lot of times. This is where you see people say things like, who does she think she is? Who do they think they are? They don't understand what the Lord is doing, especially if they've never been exposed to the prophetic, or they've never seen the process of a prophet being birthed. So Eli tells Hannah here that she's drunk. Okay, he misunderstands things. Okay, so again, a prophet, this is when they're barely being birthed. They are a solution. They are being misunderstood. Okay, so the second stage that the Lord shows me a prophet goes through is when they are being fed milk and weaned first. This is the processing. 1 Samuel 1:21-24 says, when Elkanah next took his family on their annual trip to Shiloh to worship God, offering sacrifices and keeping his vow, Hannah didn't go. She told her husband, after the child is weaned, I'll bring him myself and present him before God, and that's where he'll stay for good. Elkanah said to his wife, do what you think is best. Stay home until you have weaned him. Yes, let God complete what he has begun. So she did. She stayed home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Then she took him up to Shiloh, bringing also the makings of a generous sacrificial meal, a prize, bull, flour, and wine. The child was so young to be sent off. This is when you're drinking milk. This is when you're starting to lay the foundation, when you're trying to learn the basics about the gospel, the foundation pieces. This is where you start realizing that you need to go a little deeper in prayer, you're seeking the Lord. This is where you can't necessarily understand everything concerning the prophetic or even the fivefold ministry, but you know that you need to lay down the foundation. The only thing that you can digest at that time is milk. Okay, so you're starting to consume nourishment, but you're still receiving it from somebody who is still trying to nourish you. Okay, so you can't necessarily feed yourself. You're still receiving from your pastor. You're still receiving from somebody else that can feed you and wean you. Okay, so then we go to the stage where a prophet needs to learn how to be a servant. So this is a stage where you're serving, you're being accountable, you're being mentored and taught. This is the character building, okay? 1 Samuel 2:11 says, Elkanah went home to Ramah. The boy stayed and served God in the company of Eli the priest, okay? So he understood what it was to have somebody oversee him, to lead him. He's being taught to serve other people. He's being taught to be humble and be meek. He's being taught that it's not always going to be having the mic. It's not always going to be you being in the limelight. The Lord wants to make sure that you can serve. He wants to know that your heart posture is going to be correct, even when people don't recognize you, even when you're working behind the scenes and you're not getting recognized. This is where you're working. You're starting to work. The Lord is dealing with your character. He's pruning you. He's having you have these encounters where you're bumping heads with people, and he's really dealing with your character, okay? He's making sure that you know how to serve people and that you are going to know how to treat people, okay? So the next stage after that is you're being made uncomfortable, okay? Royal garments are being changed. You're having to give a word to Eli, confronting corruption inside the church. This is where you're starting to grow and people are starting to see that there's a change in you, okay? So when we're talking about royal garments, we're talking about how his mom would take him a garment every single year. You're growing throughout the years, you're being processed, you're being matured. The way that people are seeing you is changing, okay? You can no longer stay in the old ways. You can no longer stay wearing the old clothing. You're maturing, okay? You're realizing that there's more out there than just superficial. You want something deeper. So again, you're moving into a higher dimension, a higher level with the Lord. The Lord is starting to show you things, and your eyes are really starting to open to things that are happening behind the scenes that you didn't used to see before. So 1 Samuel 3:10-15 talks about how the Lord he started talking to Samuel. So this is where you start realizing that, like, hey, the Lord really is talking to me. Like, all of those dreams, all of those visions, like, this is real, okay? And you start realizing that, yes, the Lord is speaking to you, and now you're starting to have to confront things inside of the church. Because remember that Eli's kids, they were not acting right? And this is where you're going to have to deal with certain situations inside the church. The Lord is strengthening you. He's pruning you. He's giving you directions. He's giving you words that are going to be kind of harsh, that you're not necessarily going to want to deliver, but he wants to see where you're at. He chose you, right? This is where leadership is like, wow, the Lord chose them. This is the person that the Lord wants to be their prophet. So this is when you're starting to become uncomfortable, because you're going to have to call out and confront systems and agendas and routines and traditions inside the local church. The last stage, we can use 1 Samuel 3:19-21 as a reference. And this is where it says that Samuel grew up, God was with him, and Samuel's prophetic record was flawless. They all knew that he was a true prophet of God. This is where people recognize you as a prophet, where people know that the Lord has sent you.